My husband's shameless childhood sweetheart tried to ruin my wedding. She forced him to drink with her and then loudly mocked me, saying that if I hadn't gone abroad for 3 years, he wouldn't have been taken advantage of by me, and she would have been the one marrying him. Just as I was about to lose my temper, I heard my fiancé by my side say, "If you're drunk, then leave. Don't babble nonsense here." Daisy's mother urgently interjected, "How can you speak to my daughter like that?" My fiancé coldly glared at her. "Shameless hag, you get out too." On our wedding day, Daisy, who had been pursuing Ethan for years, showed up. She wore a dress almost identical in style to my wedding dress, even topping it with a veil, the design of which was also nearly identical. Daisy covered her mouth in feigned surprise. "Oh my outfit is exactly like your wedding dress, Lena. Ethan, darling, who do you think is prettier between us?" She then turned to ask Ethan sweetly. Ethan's face turned ashen. Before he could erupt, I took the initiative to ask, "Today is my wedding day. What is the meaning of your attire?" It was as if she had been waiting for me to ask that question. Daisy seized the opportunity to cower behind my fiancé, feigning fear. "Ethan, Lena, you're so fierce. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Please don't overthink it." As she spoke, her eyes gleamed with obvious smugness. It was clearly no accident. She knew I would be wearing this wedding dress and deliberately chose a similar style. The Go and Liu families were close friends. Ethan and I had started planning our wedding a year ago, so if Daisy wanted to know what style of wedding dress I would wear, it would have been as easy as pie for her. Ever since my fiancé and I started dating, Daisy had relentlessly bothered us. Even when she went abroad to study, upon learning of my existence, she sent suggestive photos to my fiancé and harassed him with ambiguous messages every night. Because of the close relationship between our families, my fiancé didn't want to blow things out of proportion. After numerous warnings yielded no results, he blocked her. She then secretly dug up my information and posted it on major platforms, fabricating a story that I had taken advantage of her absence abroad to seduce her man. She incited netizens to search for my information and cyberbully me. I tracked the clues and cornered her. When confronted by my fiancé, she feigned innocence, claiming she was merely bored and made it up just for fun, then called me fragile and guilty-minded. Such incidents had happened countless times, so it was nothing new. The worst instance was when she severely injured Ethan, nearly sending him to his grave. Ethan himself didn't remember that incident, but after I learned about it from my mother-in-law, I made it clear to him that Daisy was not allowed to attend our wedding. I don't know why she still showed up here, but perhaps she hadn't realized that Ethan was no longer the man he used to be, no longer the one who would suppress his anger to listen to her ridiculous antics. Indeed, before I could even say a word, Ethan took action. He grabbed her collar, ignored her screams, dragged her straight to the door, and threw her out. Daisy tumbled onto the ground, then struggled to look at Ethan, her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, don't you dare call me family. I don't have a shameless sister like you." Ethan cut her off directly. "Either change your clothes or get out." His face was grim, his tone chillingly terrifying. Daisy was so frightened she forgot to cry. He turned to look at me, his eyes still burning with anger. She wanted to say something more, but seeing Ethan's expression, she stammered in fear, then finally glared at me furiously before getting up and leaving. Ethan and I returned to the living room. The moment I stepped inside, Ethan anxiously embraced me from behind, his voice laced with tenderness. "Lena, don't be angry. I truly didn't know why she came here. I clearly had everything arranged." He seemed afraid I would run away. I had loved Ethan for 12 years. He was a Scorpio and a severely overthinking one at that. From the moment he fell in love with me until now, his feelings had never wavered. Of course, I believed everything he said. It seemed he genuinely had no idea about Daisy's appearance at the wedding. At that moment, he seemed to recall something and released me. "Lena, wait for me. I'll have someone investigate how she got here." Ethan finished speaking and was about to make a call. I pressed his hand. "No need to waste time. I probably know who it is." The number of people who didn't want Ethan and me to marry could be counted on one hand. A process of elimination would reveal them. In front of Ethan, those people always appeared very enthusiastic towards me, so he was unaware of their subtle tricks behind his back. But I knew exactly what they wanted, for my wedding to be a complete disaster. The more they wanted that, the less I would let them have their way. Even with that thought, I still didn't want to wear this wedding dress anymore. Ethan and I had chosen it a long time ago, but seeing Daisy wear an identical style still made me uncomfortable. I raised my hands to take off the wedding dress. Ethan panicked. "Lena, we're about to get married. Why are you taking off your wedding dress? Help me find a new one. I don't want to wear this anymore," I said. Hearing me clarify that I wasn't backing out of the wedding, Ethan's tense mood finally relaxed. "Yes, Lena," he said with a smile, then immediately called someone to retrieve the backup wedding dress. The backup dress was delivered quickly. Ethan and I lingered for a moment, then the wedding began. As soon as I stepped onto the stage, I saw everyone's astonished and surprised gazes. I had already anticipated this reaction when I first saw Ethan's eyes light up during my fitting. This backup wedding dress was a stunning red, with a completely different aura from the previous one. If the previous dress was merely beautiful, this one was breathtaking. At the time, Ethan had made a fuss about the red being too flashy and a bit too revealing compared to the white one, refusing to let me wear it on stage. But after the dress clash, incident of course, this was the only choice. I glanced at the guest table. Daisy was glaring at me with envious eyes. If looks could kill, I would have died several times over. I pretended not to see her, followed the MC's instructions, and completed the wedding ceremony. With a fierce man like Ethan around, no one dared to cause trouble during the wedding itself. But during the celebratory banquet, someone started acting up. As usual, Ethan and I finished toasting with the elders of our families. When we arrived at Daisy's table, a middle-aged woman said, "I can't believe little Ethan is getting married so soon. My memories still stop at the time when you and Daisy used to play house together. Back then, little Ethan was the dad, Daisy was the mom, and you even said you wanted to have a chubby grandson for me," she finished, laughing heartily. I couldn't help but frown. Saying this right now was clearly an intentional provocation. I was about to speak, but Ethan beat me to it. "I never said that. Besides, when we were kids, there were at least 7 or 8 of us playing together. Roles were drawn by lots and rotated. Everyone played husband and wife with Daisy at some point," he explained clearly, without a trace of sloppiness. I was very satisfied and smiled, replying, "If that's the case, then you must have many chubby grandsons, Auntie Liu. You're so lucky, your daughter has so many grandsons with so many men, hee." This middle-aged woman was Daisy's mother, Mrs. Liu. My mother-in-law had previously told me that the Liu and Go families were old friends. Although the relationship had faded, Mrs. Liu was very fond of Ethan and wanted him as her son-in-law. For this reason, she frequently tried to drive a wedge between Ethan and me, but fortunately, we didn't fall into her traps. This time, Daisy's appearance was clearly Mrs. Liu's fault. Mrs. Liu's face turned pale when she heard me speak. "Child, why would you say such a thing?" "Oh, what did I say?" I feigned innocence. Mrs. Liu was like punching cotton, instantly speechless. Daisy's face was ashen. She glared at me with envy and resentment but quickly regained her composure, smiling at me and saying, "Lena, my mom is just a straightforward person. Please don't be angry." Then she turned to Mrs. Liu. "Mom, those are all past events. Don't bring them up, Lena will be unhappy." "What's there to be unhappy about?" Although our family and the Go family aren't big clans, we are still respected families. Daughters-in-law marrying into our 2 families should be generous so others don't mock us, she said, implying that I was not generous. I scoffed. Those nearby, sensing something amiss, immediately intervened. My mother-in-law also held my hand, telling me not to argue with her. In the past, I would have fought her to the end, but now it was, after all, my and Ethan's wedding. Getting angry at her was not very appropriate. I said nothing more and went to pour myself a drink, thinking I would finish as quickly as possible and return to enjoy dinner. As soon as I finished pouring, Mrs. Liu handed a drink to Daisy. Then she poured a fresh glass for Ethan and said, "Ethan, you and Daisy are childhood sweethearts, after all. On this happy day, let's have a cheerful drink together." Mrs. Liu finished, then smiled at me and said, "Lena, don't be angry on such a happy day. I always hoped Ethan would be my son, but now that you 2 are married, let them have a drink as if to fulfill my wish." Daisy quickly added, "That's right, Lena, you don't know, but if I hadn't gone abroad and given you the opportunity, perhaps it would be me marrying Ethan right now." I laughed loudly in anger. I couldn't hold back anymore. Just as I was about to explode, Ethan next to me also lost his patience. He pushed away the offered glass of wine. "If you're drunk, then get out. Don't babble nonsense here." Everyone knew Ethan was angry by this gesture and dared not speak further. Guests at other tables were also shocked and turned to look at us. "Ethan, Daisy is your sister, after all. How can you speak to her like that?" Mrs. Liu asked. Ethan coldly glared at her. "You get out too." Both Mrs. Liu and Daisy were stunned, their faces instantly paling with anger. Seeing their displeasure, I was delighted, but since my husband had already scolded them, I couldn't just sit idly by. I feigned a blush to my husband, imitating Daisy's sweet tone. "Auntie Liu's little sister, don't be angry. My husband is also very straightforward. But Auntie Liu, I think you're already drunk. Who tells the groom to exchange drinks with others at his own wedding? If you think that's what it takes to be generous, then how about I invite another girl to exchange drinks with your husband? What do you think?" During Mrs. Liu's confinement period years ago, her husband had an affair with a girl outside. In fact, the girl had no idea he was married. After realizing she was deceived, she quickly left him. But Mrs. Liu remained furious, stopping the girl several times, throwing rotten eggs at her, and even going to her company to cause trouble. The incident caused a huge sensation at the time, with the wife-mistress conflict posted all over the internet. Eventually, her husband managed to smooth things over with money. This had actually happened years ago, and people had mostly forgotten, but when I brought it up, everyone couldn't help but recall the incident. Mrs. Liu's eyes also took on a subtle glint. "You little brat," Mrs. Liu glared at me angrily. I feigned fear, hiding behind Ethan, acting aggrieved. "Auntie, why are you so angry? Your family, no matter what, is a respected family." Getting angry without a word will make people think you're not generous enough. I threw back every word she had said to me earlier. Everyone understood my meaning and secretly chuckled, barely suppressing their laughter. Daisy saw me bullying her mother and was so angry her face turned liver-colored. She couldn't help but say angrily to me, "Lena, you did that on purpose." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, not calling me sister anymore? Little sister, aren't you too angry, showing your true colors?" What a coincidence, Ethan is a straightforward man. He hates green tea types who are one way on the outside and another on the inside. So I don't think us being together has anything to do with you going abroad. My green tea act made Mrs. Liu and her daughter so furious they looked like they were about to ascend to heaven. Just a green tea act who doesn't know how to perform. Not just me, if needed, Ethan could even put on a show for them. My mother-in-law, who had been enjoying her food, noticed they were both silent. She immediately realized it was her turn to step in, so she quickly stood up and smiled, trying to persuade Mrs. Liu. "Sister, don't be angry anymore. Children just babble nonsense, don't take it to heart." Then she said to my father-in-law, "Anyway, the wedding is over. Old Go, take the children home first. On your way, bring some clothes for Daisy. Look, she's shivering." Oh, only then did I realize that Daisy was trembling with anger. My father-in-law, who was sitting at another table, put down his wine glass, responded, and stood up. Mrs. Liu angrily said, "No need, we'll go ourselves, you just spoil her. Sooner or later, you'll run into trouble." She finished, glaring at me fiercely, then turned and took Daisy away. At the door, Daisy also turned back, glaring at me with unwilling yet helpless eyes. After the mother and daughter left, finally, someone in the audience couldn't help but laugh and give me a thumbs up. Mrs. Liu's sarcastic remarks weren't a one-time thing. Everyone was reluctant to say anything because they were all friends. This time, I had been too firm, and unintentionally I had made them happy. Because of this little incident, everyone's mood improved, and they ate and drank more cheerfully. Calls for toasts echoed everywhere. My husband was dragged into drinking hard liquor, while I sat next to my mother-in-law, eating. After all, one needs strength to deal with things. I don't know if he was happy about getting married, but after a while, Ethan was completely drunk. He staggered, bringing me back to the bridal suite and continued the next step, counting money. I sat cross-legged on the bed, opening all the red envelopes, looking at the red bills scattered across the bed, rubbing my hands. Next to me was a ledger clearly noting how much money each person had given. After looking through it, I realized that Mrs. Liu had attended the dinner without bringing a red envelope. However, I didn't care much. They were kicked out anyway, so just consider them two free actors invited on my wedding day to provide everyone with a special performance. Ethan lay on his side, propping his chin with his hand, watching me. His hazy dark eyes reflected the light, appearing full of stars. When drunk, he seemed less cold, more gentle and approachable. "Wouldn't it be better to count with a machine? Counting by hand is tiring," Ethan asked sweetly while I was counting. I kept moving my hands, counting and saying, if I use a money counting machine, it will just feel like numbers. Counting by hand makes them feel like real money. Good point. Ethan thought for a moment, nodded, and said nothing more, continuing to watch me count intently. I counted twice, ensuring it matched the ledger, then gathered all the money with satisfaction. Then, suddenly remembering something, I said to Ethan, "These are all mine, okay?" "My greedy little one." Ethan looked at me and smiled softly. "It's all yours, but you forgot one thing." "Forgot what?" I checked again and again, thinking to myself that I had calculated so carefully, how could I have missed anything? At this moment, Ethan took my hand, a charming smile on his face, both doting and gentle. "I'm yours too." I was instantly smit. Over the next few days, I quickly adapted and got along well with my in-laws. In fact, before the marriage, my in-laws were very kind to me, treating me like their own daughter. My in-laws were also very open-minded. Because of this, Mrs. Liu had tried to provoke them many times but failed. After marrying, since our home was far from my company, I resigned and planned to set up my own studio specializing in design. My in-laws were very supportive, even giving me the key to their house in the central business district. The house happened to be not far from their company, making it convenient for Ethan and me to go to work. But for some reason, Mrs. Liu found out about this. That weekend, Mrs. Liu and Daisy suddenly came to our house. Because I had gone to bed very late the night before and woken up quite late, when I heard noises in the living room, I thought guests had arrived. Coincidentally, there was a party with Ethan's friends in the evening. I stopped sleeping, got out of bed, showered, and changed clothes before opening the door. As soon as I opened my bedroom door, I saw Daisy standing outside, doing something. "What are you doing here?" I was startled by her and still felt a shock. Daisy probably didn't expect me to open the door suddenly. She looked frightened, but quickly regained her composure, glanced at me, and said, "If you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to be afraid of me knocking on your door." She made me laugh in anger. "Sister, did you come here to put on a show? This is my house. What kind of conscience-defying thing could I possibly be doing?" But I was too lazy to talk to her and was about to go out when I saw her looking past me towards the bedroom, her eyes darting around as if searching for something. I slammed the door shut. I could tell what she was looking for just by the smell. I said coldly, "Your Ethan is out. He's not here." As if I had hit a nerve, Daisy looked a bit embarrassed, snorted, and turned to leave. I also went downstairs. As soon as I reached the staircase, I saw Mrs. Liu sitting on the sofa, smiling and chatting with my mother-in-law. Daisy sat on the sofa, looking at me with discomfort. The relationship between my mother-in-law and Mrs. Liu was actually very ordinary, but because their families were friends, they had to maintain outward peace. Although I hated Mrs. Liu and Daisy, I couldn't just kick them out. After coming downstairs, I greeted them politely. Mrs. Liu saw me, her expression stiff for a moment, then she quickly smiled and said, "Lena just woke up." Before I could speak, she smiled and said to my mother-in-law, "It's normal to sleep in after getting married. As long as she doesn't develop bad habits like sleeping until noon or being harder to serve than an ancestor, it's fine." Her words seemed to carry a hidden meaning. I was about to retort when my mother-in-law's expression changed first. She said playfully, "Sister, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about me?" I couldn't help but snort with laughter. Before my marriage, I once stayed at my in-laws' house and overslept. Fearing I would leave a bad impression, I apologized. But my mother-in-law waved her hand, saying, "What's this? Remember when I was first married?" The next day, my mother-in-law vividly recounted how she used to lie in bed, refusing to cook, being stubborn, and how her mother-in-law scolded her. I greatly admired her optimistic and open-minded attitude, so after that day, I knew I was won over by her. Clearly, Mrs. Liu also remembered this and quickly explained with a forced laugh, "I didn't mean it like that." She was so embarrassed that she quickly changed the subject. At this moment, Ethan called. I went out to answer the phone. The studio that had been prepared for me was undergoing renovations these past few days. Ethan thought it was dirty and dusty, so he didn't let me go. He supervised it himself. It was almost time for the class reunion, and Ethan said he would come back to pick me up. After hanging up, I was about to go back to my room to get my jacket, but as I stepped out, I heard Mrs. Liu's voice. "I heard Lena quit her job to start a business, and your family even gave her a house in the city center." Her tone was not like casual chatter, but more like an interrogation, which made me very uncomfortable. I frowned. Then I heard my mother-in-law's gentle voice. "Oh, why do you ask?" Mrs. Liu pouted and said, Sister, young people nowadays are too impetuous, only wanting quick success. Starting a business might just be an excuse to probe your assets. Who knows, she might be after your family's fortune. Now she wants a room and you give it to her. What will you do later when she comes asking for hundreds of thousands or millions? This time, my mother-in-law's expression changed. Let me tell you, take those words back. If you ever say them in front of me again, I won't hold back. Not to mention, Lena is absolutely not that kind of person. She's very practical in her work. We considered all aspects of the studio long before it started. We are fortunate to be able to help her more. Moreover, Lena married into our family, so she is our daughter. She left her home so far away to marry here, she's already feeling vulnerable. If we still suspect her without cause, how will she feel? We've all been daughters-in-law. The older generation had conservative mindsets, constantly suspicious and nitpicking about their daughters-in-law, which led to many conflicts between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. This cannot happen in our generation anymore. My mother-in-law's voice was so stern that Mrs. Liu felt that if she said another word, my mother-in-law would truly lose all respect for her. Mrs. Liu pursed her lips, finally swallowing the words she wanted to say, but still couldn't help complaining, "You spoil your daughter-in-law too much." My mother-in-law looked proud. "She's my daughter-in-law. If I don't spoil her, who will?" Hearing this, I felt warmth in my heart. In fact, my mother-in-law had always done this, even after a long time together. So even though I married far from home, I rarely felt homesick. I even felt this was my second home. I opened the door and walked in. Seeing Mrs. Liu's grim face, I pretended not to have heard anything, just greeted them and went upstairs. As I reached the bedroom door, I saw Daisy looking panicked, walking towards me. Behind her was Ethan's and my bedroom. "What are you doing?" I frowned and asked. Daisy seemed even more panicked when she saw me, but she still feigned calmness and spoke to me in an unpleasant tone. "I'm looking for the bathroom. The bathroom is downstairs." "Oh, I didn't know," Daisy said, then walked directly downstairs, but from behind, a hint of panic was still visible. I felt something was wrong. I opened the bedroom door and stepped in. Sure enough, I smelled a faint perfume scent, similar to Daisy's, very light, but I still smelled it clearly. She had clearly been in our bedroom. I looked around the room, there seemed to be no signs of anything disturbed. Everything was still in place. But what was she doing here? While I was thinking, my phone rang again. It was Ethan calling. He was already downstairs. I didn't have time to think much, so I grabbed my jacket and rushed out. I had met all of Ethan's friends before. They had grown up together, and I had a good impression of them, except for Daisy, of course. However, Daisy had had little contact with them since she went abroad. At this party, Ethan also said he didn't invite Daisy, but I didn't expect her to still show up. When Daisy walked in, Ethan and I were a bit surprised. He frowned, his face darkening, looking at the man next to him with an inquiring gaze. He was also the host among their friends, Jack, who had organized this gathering. Jack looked helpless and explained to us in a low voice. "She got the news from someone unfamiliar and insisted on coming. I couldn't say anything." We all understood and said nothing. "Jack, long time no see, you're looking more handsome every day." After Daisy happily hugged and greeted a few people, she walked towards Jack and Ethan. She glanced at Ethan and quickly hugged Jack with a smile. Jack quickly backed away, making a gesture of refusal. No, you smell of strong perfume. I can't explain that to my wife when I get home." "We've been friends since childhood, what's wrong with a hug?" She pouted, her eyes sad, appearing so vulnerable that she couldn't marry. "After getting married, even childhood friends don't acknowledge me." As she spoke, she glanced meaningfully at Ethan and me, but Ethan didn't fall into the trap. Realizing she was talking about him, he quietly said, "Then I hope that after you get married, your husband can still affectionately hug other women." Daisy's face almost turned pale. "Ethan, how can you say such a thing to me? That's not what I meant." Daisy was a little upset. "All right, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Let's sit down and eat first," Jack mediated. Daisy then fell silent and found a seat, glaring at me fiercely. "What are you looking at?" I didn't say it. During dinner, perhaps knowing Ethan would protect me, Daisy behaved more honestly and made no mistakes. But after 3 rounds of drinks, the conversation in the room was lively. When Ethan went to the bathroom, Daisy couldn't sit still anymore. Holding a glass of wine, she walked towards me. I was bending down, eating a shrimp that Ethan had just peeled for me. Noticing a shadow in front of me, I subconsciously looked up. "What are you doing here?" My tone was terrible. May lightning strike anyone who disturbs a meal. I hated being bothered while eating. Daisy seemed not to expect me to be so blunt. She was stunned for a moment, then said, Lena, why are you so hostile towards me? Am I? I wiped my mouth with a napkin and said, you can see that I'm hostile towards you, and yet you don't have the sense to stay away from me. Daisy smiled. Why don't you like me? Is it just because I like Ethan and have a good relationship with him? So can I interpret that as you not feeling secure with Ethan? At this, her smile grew even more smug. Ha ha, I scoffed. Stop clucking so much. Even a hen laying eggs doesn't cluck as much as you do. I don't know what misunderstanding you have, but when we first got together, it was asterisk your Ethan who pursued me. Between us, asterisk he was the one who lacked a sense of security, not me. And another correction for you, if I hate someone, everything they do is an eyesore to me. That means even if you offer me a drink now, I'd suspect you're up to something. As I spoke, I glanced at the glass of wine in her hand. Daisy was not angry. Instead, she smiled. Lena, I'm afraid you don't know that I and they have been friends since childhood. Even if Ethan is infatuated with you, everyone else has sharp eyes. I believe Ethan will sooner or later wake up after seeing your true colors. As she spoke, her eyes suddenly darted behind me for a moment, then suddenly, fear flashed in her eyes. Lena, I really didn't mean that. I'm not fighting with you. Lena, please don't. She then grabbed my hand, and with her other hand, firmly held the wine glass and splashed it directly onto her own face. I glanced behind me and saw Ethan and Jack walking in from the door. What an old play, and the acting was still so exaggerated. I even wondered if she watched romance dramas from 20 years ago. Is overseas so backward? However, since she was so into acting, I decided to play along. Without hesitation, I quickly and decisively slapped her. Ah! She screamed, covering her face and looking at me in shock. She probably thought that after her prank, I would anxiously explain to everyone that I didn't splash the wine. But she didn't expect that I would actually hit her. Of course, I had to hit her. I had to teach her that you can't catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den. Splashing wine like that was nothing. If she wanted a man to pity her, she might even have to risk her life. This little trick was too gentle. What happened? Ethan and Jack walked over anxiously. The others in the room were also startled by the action. The originally lively room suddenly fell silent. Everyone looked at us. Before I could speak, Daisy cried out, I don't know why Lena treats me like this. Just now, I only wanted to apologize to her for the previous misunderstanding. I didn't expect her to still be so angry. As soon as I brought the glass of wine over, she splashed it on me and even hit me. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with resentment. Her acting was simply superb. I was very satisfied. Are you all right? Ethan asked loudly. I'm fine, Ethan. You. Before she could finish her sentence, Ethan walked over and took my hand, his eyes full of distress. Your hand is red. He rubbed my palm. Daisy was stunned, tears still falling. Ethan, asterisk she hit me. This time she seemed unable to pretend anymore, her voice slightly frantic. Shut up. Ethan frowned, looking at her sternly with dark eyes. This time he was truly angry. Daisy was so frightened by his gaze that she even forgot to cry. Lena has never laid a hand on anyone, Ethan said coldly, implying that if I did that, it must have been Daisy's fault. He always trusted me unconditionally, which made me very happy. Jack, standing nearby, also said, Daisy, we know you've always had feelings for Ethan, but he's married now, so you really don't need to resort to these dirty tricks. This time, Daisy was completely stunned. Jack, even you don't believe me. It's not that I don't believe you, it's just that this tactic is too outdated and doesn't seem like something Lena would do. Others also chimed in. To prevent Ethan from being poisoned by green tea, women, over the years, I had taught him how to distinguish them, so much so that even his friends learned a few tricks. Coincidentally, I had taught him this trick a long time ago. I still remember how they scoffed when I taught them, never expecting them to actually remember it. You people, you're all helping her, Daisy broke down. All right then, I'll call the police, I'll find justice for myself. She thought she could intimidate them this way. In fact, a few friends hesitated and advised her, we're all friends, why make such a big deal out of it? Just let it go. Exactly, it'll be awkward if the police get involved. After hearing a few people speak, she seemed to feel more confident, pointed at me and said angrily, tell her to apologize to me or else I'll call the police. Daisy was in a frenzied state, and saying she'd call the police didn't seem like an empty threat. Some people, not wanting trouble, looked at me with questioning eyes. I smiled and said, all right, call them. And conveniently, bring the wine glass along to see if my fingerprints are on it. Back then, Daisy grabbed my hand and splashed the wine on herself. I didn't touch the glass at all. Daisy seemed to have thought of this, and her expression suddenly changed. I continued, You grabbed my hand and splashed wine on your face. I was so scared I wanted to pull my hand away. The result was that you brought your own face forward. What could I do? At most, this is accidental injury. Compared to nearly killing someone, how severe can a wound of this level be? I looked at her coldly, my tone grim. Daisy's face grew paler and paler as she heard my last words. She was completely panicked. She parted her lips, but in the end said nothing, only glaring at me fiercely before turning and leaving in anger. Ethan frowned slightly, looking down at me. What do you mean, nearly killed someone? Who did she nearly kill? I was stunned for a moment, then smiled and charmingly hooked my arm through his. No, I just tricked her. Looking at her reaction, she definitely has a guilty conscience. Ethan didn't think much of it, being pulled away by Jack to continue drinking. I felt relieved that he didn't delve deeper into the matter. After the party, Ethan and I returned home. As soon as we entered the room, he wanted to get intimate with me. Smelling the faint scent of wine on him, I hadn't drunk, but I felt a little tipsy. I suddenly remembered something and quickly pushed him away. Wait a minute. What's wrong? Ethan looked at me with hazy dark eyes, slightly displeased at being interrupted. Be good. I tapped his head and made a shushing gesture. Then I turned off the lights and turned on my phone's flashlight. I scanned the room and finally found a tiny red dot inside the air conditioner, a camera. When I took out the camera, Ethan's eyes were chillingly cold. Daisy was in our room today, I explained to Ethan, feeling a great fear in my heart at the same time. Luckily, I reacted quickly just now. Otherwise, who knew what would have happened next? Ethan's patience had reached its limit. I'll go find her. I quickly stopped him. I knew he was angry, but at the moment he couldn't let his anger cloud his judgment like this. We suspected Daisy did it, but there was no proof. Second, even if there was proof, if he went over there in anger now, Mrs. Liu would intervene, and everything would just end. Daisy's previous rumors had caused me a lot of harm. This time, I had no intention of letting her off the hook. I told Ethan that the previous cyberbullying incident and this current one both lacked proof. As a result, before I finished speaking, he had calmed down and said, "All right, I know what to do." With that, he walked out the door. I was a little confused. I don't think I told him what to do yet. Fearing he wasn't rational enough, I still chased after him. As soon as I stepped out of the room, I heard Mrs. Liu's angry voice coming from downstairs. Anyway, our two families are friends. I watched Daisy grow up. She's like half family to me. I know what happened at the wedding last time was my fault, but I've already apologized to you. Why are you still pushing us like this? My mother-in-law, unaware of what had happened, stood by, trying hard to mediate. First, don't be angry, tell me what happened. Mrs. Liu's fury only intensified. Don't ask me, ask your son and daughter-in-law what wonderful things they've done. Ethan and Lena, what did they do? My mother-in-law was confused. Seeing that she really didn't know, Mrs. Liu said angrily. After coming back from the party, Daisy kept crying. I asked her several times before she said your daughter-in-law poured wine all over her and hit her for no reason and even slapped her. I really didn't expect your daughter-in-law to be so vicious. No way, I believe Lena wouldn't do such a thing without cause, my mother-in-law subconsciously said. This made Mrs. Liu even angrier. She almost screamed. She wouldn't do such a thing. Is my Daisy lying? Did she hit herself? While my mother-in-law truly didn't know what to do, I came downstairs. I found it amusing to see her arrogant demeanor. What's wrong, Auntie Liu? Didn't you ask your daughter why I hit her? She knew very well why she was hit by me. If not, why would she cry and run home instead of staying to fight back? When Mrs. Liu saw me, her eyes turned red with anger, and she was about to rush over and hit me. My mother-in-law quickly stopped her and yelled at me to go upstairs. Mrs. Liu had a violent temper. Her husband divorced her years ago. Her daughter was a treasure in her heart. For her daughter, she would even dare to hit me, but I wasn't afraid. After all, I wasn't an easy target. It's okay, Mom, just let her hit me. This is a society governed by law. If she dares to hit me, I'll go get a forensic examination. Who knows, I might not only be able to buy another apartment, but also give her a 7-day handcuffed tour of the detention center. As soon as I spoke, Mrs. Liu became even angrier, her face turning pale. You vicious woman, a malicious person like you, what will your future be like? Sister, tell Ethan to divorce her as soon as possible. Mrs. Liu was boiling with rage. I continued to add fuel to the fire. Auntie Liu, have you forgotten so soon? Why are you still talking about divorce here? You say I'm malicious. How can I compare to you and your daughter? Using public opinion to ruin my reputation, knowing my husband was married yet still seducing him, wearing a wedding dress at my wedding, deliberately ruining my wedding. I pointed out each of her actions to her. We were already at odds anyway. I had no intention of saving her face. Oh, by the way, your daughter was also peeking into our room. Who knows what she was thinking or what strange ideas she had? You're spouting nonsense. Don't believe me. Then go ask her, or call her here and we'll confront each other. I wanted to use this to completely sever the connection between her family and my mother-in-law. Although the two families maintained outward peace, it was actually my mother-in-law's tolerance that often allowed Mrs. Liu to take advantage. Before, I didn't care what happened, but now that I was married, if I let these two leeches continue to cling, I would truly be letting myself down. All right, wait, I'll call Daisy right now. If you framed Daisy, I'll call the police to arrest you immediately. Mrs. Liu finished speaking and took out her phone. As it turned out, before she could make the call, Daisy's phone rang. Before Mrs. Liu could speak, Daisy's crying voice came through the receiver. Mom, please come back quickly. There are a lot of police officers at home. After inquiring about the situation, I learned that Ethan had reported the incident to the police. He had found evidence that Daisy bought a camera and installed it in our room. The transaction history for ordering and installing were all high-resolution videos. When I heard the news, I was completely shocked. I knew he could get evidence, but I didn't expect him to get it so quickly. Moreover, he directly called the police without warning, giving Mrs. Liu and Daisy no time to react. He didn't give me time to react either. In fact, initially, I hadn't intended to go that far. Who knew that by the time I reacted, I was already at the police station with Ethan to give my statement? All the evidence matched, and Daisy was convicted of invasion of privacy. Fortunately, it didn't cause significant damage, so the final result was 7 days in detention. Mrs. Liu went crazy. She yelled at the police and threatened them, but no one paid any attention. Finally, she had to admit her mistake and called my mother-in-law in tears, begging me and Ethan to forgive Daisy so she could bail her out. I thought my mother-in-law would be persuaded, but unexpectedly, she just calmly said to the other end of the line, "Although I watched Daisy grow up, my son and daughter-in-law are my precious darlings. Daisy hurt them, so she must face the punishment she deserves. And furthermore, Daisy has become like this, so you should reflect. As a mother, everyone loves their children. I understand you don't want your child to be weak, but don't let your child hurt others. This time, let it be a lesson. If we can't teach our children, then let life teach them. It's not a bad thing for children to suffer a little." With that, my mother-in-law hung up and blocked Mrs. Liu's phone number. I greatly admired my mother's decisiveness and open-mindedness. Daisy was detained for 7 days and given ideological education. She had never been treated so harshly. When she came out, she looked haggard. As soon as she walked out, she hugged Mrs. Liu and cried. At this time, I was busy with work at the studio. Under Ethan's day and night supervision, the studio's decoration was completed a week earlier than expected. After settling everything, I began recruiting staff. My first targets were former colleagues and friends. After learning about my plan, most of them eagerly joined without hesitation. Since most of us were girls, for safety reasons, we installed cameras around the studio. We ended up with an extra camera, so we casually hung it in a secluded corner of the staircase on the first floor. It was inconspicuous. If you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't see it. Initially, I just thought of it as a precaution, but who knew it would prove useful in just a few days. Today was my mother-in-law's birthday. Ethan and I were busy with birthday preparations all day, so we didn't go to the company. As I was waiting to pick up the cake for my mother-in-law at the bakery, I received a call from a friend. "Lena, our studio has been vandalized." We had to ask someone to deliver the cake first, then quickly rushed back to the studio. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I smelled a pungent odor. When I reached the door, I found it covered in red paint streaks with blood-red words written on it. There were also liquid stains that looked like unset egg yolk. The studio inside was completely unrecognizable. Furniture was scattered everywhere on the floor, several computers were smashed, and the carefully chosen carpet was now covered in water and glass shards. Dark brown substances were splattered on the white walls, which I couldn't identify. "Lena, I just went out to eat." When I came back, it was like this. This floor only has 2 companies, and the 2 sides barely interact. Besides, what we usually do is design, so there are very few people here. If we go out for a quick meal, we rarely lock the door, so no one expected this to happen. I comforted my friend first and told her not to panic. I wanted to check the camera, but I found that the power in the studio had been cut off a long time ago. It was clear that the culprit was well prepared and must have been here several times before. Has anyone suspicious come to the company recently? I asked my friend. Suspicious person? My friend thought for a moment, then suddenly remembered something. Today, while you were out, an auntie came several times, saying her daughter was looking for a job, so she came to check out the environment and asked many questions about our profits. We thought she was a rival company trying to gather information, so we didn't say anything. She stayed here all afternoon, then left. I was originally going to wait for you to come back and report it to you, but I didn't expect. I immediately understood. I asked my friend about the auntie's characteristics and finally confirmed that it was Mrs. Liu. Lena, you know this person, but we don't have any evidence right now, my friend said, so anxious she was almost in tears. I was having a headache when Ethan said, the elevator camera is connected to the building's public power supply, so she couldn't cut the power there. She wouldn't dare leave by elevator, so she could only use the stairs. Don't we have a camera on the first-floor staircase? This reminded me. I immediately pulled out a computer, then found the surveillance video from the first floor and fast-forwarded to the timestamp when the studio was vandalized. Sure enough, as Ethan said, after a while, I saw a middle-aged woman wearing a mask and carrying a bucket of paint appear on the surveillance camera. It was Mrs. Liu. She disguised herself as a cleaner, lied to some people, and then caused damage to our studio. What's even more coincidental is that she placed the tools right in the storage room on the first floor, and all of this was clearly recorded by the surveillance camera. We immediately went to the storage room on the first floor and found the paint, gloves, and other tools of the crime that she had hidden there. I called the police without hesitation. After the police verified that the fingerprints indeed belonged to Mrs. Liu, they took her to the police station. This time, her actions caused us huge losses, including damaged decorations and furniture. The total compensation amounted to 1 million yuan. When Mrs. Liu was taken to the police station, she screamed and insisted that she didn't do it, but that I had framed her. Only when the police presented the camera and criminal evidence in front of her did she fall silent, but she continued to make a fuss and refused to compensate. I took her to court to sue, and the final verdict was that she was ordered to compensate. At this point, we discovered that Mrs. Liu not only had no money, but was also heavily in debt. Tracing the reason, we found that Daisy had developed bad habits abroad, not only spending all the family's money, but also accumulating hundreds of thousands of yuan in debt abroad. After Mrs. Liu found out, she came up with the idea of marrying Daisy to Ethan to have the Go family fill this financial void. No wonder she always wanted to obstruct Ethan and me. Later, when that plan failed, Daisy came up with the idea of taking sensitive photos of Ethan and me to extort him. However, I had discovered the hidden camera early. After the incident came to light, Mrs. Liu thought that if they couldn't live well, I shouldn't expect to either. When she learned that my studio was still operating normally, she was so jealous that she specifically chose my mother-in-law's birthday to come to my studio and cause trouble. She thought she had done a perfect job, but she never expected to end up in prison because of the camera I had accidentally installed. Because she had no money for compensation, Mrs. Liu's assets were forced to be auctioned to compensate me for the damages. At the same time, due to intentional damage to private property, based on the total damage, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Ethan was silent the whole way out of the courthouse. I thought he was feeling down, so I reached out and gently patted his shoulder. Don't be sad. Ethan was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at me with bright eyes. I'm not sad. Then why aren't you saying anything? What are you thinking? I'm thinking why they chose me to fill this hole. There are so many wealthy people who could fill it. Why did it have to be me? I was speechless at his priorities. I casually said, perhaps because you're handsome. Ethan thought carefully, then smiled and looked at me, saying seriously, that must be right. Otherwise, how could I have married you? HMPH. I was dumbfounded, turned and walked away. Hey, Lena, wait for me. Ethan caught up to me. Suddenly, a scream rang in my ears. A speeding car appeared in my sight. I turned my head and saw Daisy sitting in the driver's seat, her face ferocious, her eyes bloodshot. Die, I saw her mouth the words. Before I could react, a hand quickly wrapped around me, pushing me aside. We tumbled. The car sped past, brushing against our clothes. Seeing us dodge, Daisy's eyes turned even redder. She turned the car around, aiming to hit us. I was about to drag Ethan to hide when I saw him suddenly stiffen, standing still. Ethan, I shouted. Then, as if waking up, he grabbed me and we hid in a nearby law office. Seeing Daisy angrily trying to rush towards us again, Ethan, with one hand on the window, disregarded the danger and leaped out, opened the car door, and pulled Daisy out of the driver's seat. Then, in Daisy's astonished eyes, he slapped her hard across the face. I was about to run over, but when I saw this scene, I was stunned and froze. Ethan had never hit a woman before. This was his first time, and he hit her very hard. Daisy's face immediately swelled up. This is the second time. Ethan's voice was so cold it was almost grinding teeth. Last time you almost killed me. Now you want to attack Lena? Daisy panicked. Ethan? Before she could finish her sentence, Ethan slapped the other half of her face hard. That half of her face also swelled up very quickly. I immediately understood something. Seeing him about to strike again, I quickly rushed forward and hugged him, fearing he would lose control. Perhaps someone nearby had called the police. At this moment, people from the police station quickly arrived, restrained Daisy, and took her away. Ethan and I were also taken to give our statements. The police educated Ethan about the assault, but because there was a valid reason for the incident, and Ethan had prevented a greater accident, and our attitude was very good, they didn't pursue it further but only gave a warning. I asked about Daisy's situation. They told me that although there were no casualties this time, the crime was very serious due to her conscious intent and homicidal tendencies. She would have to serve at least 10 years in prison. In short, Daisy's life was completely ruined. In my heart, I felt a sense of satisfaction. She showed no shame for having harmed Ethan and even wanted to continue hurting him. This was the karma she deserved, even if it came a little late. Leaving the police station, I was about to ask Ethan if he remembered anything when he suddenly hugged me. Lena, I'm so scared. His voice trembled violently. I felt his heart pounding fiercely. This was the first time I had heard his voice so distressed and anxious, so I was a little confused for a moment. After he calmed down and told me what happened before, I understood the whole story. 13 years ago, because her parents divorced, Daisy lost emotional control and grabbed the driver's steering wheel, causing a car accident. Ethan, who was in the passenger seat, was not severely injured, but his brain was damaged, and he lost almost all of his memories. Moreover, after waking up, his personality changed greatly. The ironic thing was that before the car accident, he had already fallen for me. I had no idea about any of these things. Fearing I wouldn't believe him, he told me most of the things that happened to me back then, even about me stealing someone's lollipop. Don't say any more, don't say any more. I wanted to cover his mouth, but he held my hand, his eyes hazy, his voice trembling. Lena, I'm so scared of making the same mistake as back then. What if I wait and forget you? What I'm afraid of is that one day I'll remember, only to find that I've remembered you, but you're no longer by my side. What will I do then? A man like him was now trembling, his voice like a little girl's. My eyes were a little teary. All right, aren't I here with you now? We went around in circles but still ended up together, didn't we? I patted his shoulder, comforting him. Besides, you were the one who pursued me afterward. What does that mean? It means you and I are destined for each other. I smiled, looking at him. My nose suddenly felt a little sore. Fate is truly magical. I'm so glad our fate is also magical.